We are on Mount Carmel in a place called Muhaka, which is the peak of the mountain here, and a very interesting place. But then something which is very close to what we do in security and defense, I would like to invite Tom now to share with us the story that became available to us through one of the most incredible people in Israel, and he was the head of the Air Force in the IDF.
You know, the story, Ron, of Elijah and the challenge, it sounds like a biblical story, but 3,000 years ago, the same breeze was blowing and trees were growing and plants were blooming, and people are people. You know, we think a long time ago reality wasn't what it is today, and it certainly is what it is today. And these were human beings back then, and as Ronnie said, there was a challenge. Whose God is greater, the God of the Baal, the pagan gods, or this other God? And for you Jewish people here, your challenge as being chosen by God was not for the first class and, you know, the best jet airplane. The challenge was an extremely difficult burden to take that message of a monotheistic God into those 400, 450 pagan, evil prophets and stand firm. Now, that's difficult stuff. And if I'm mistaken, if I'm not mistaken, has that challenge changed? No. To my Jewish brothers and sisters, your challenge is to communicate the truth of a monotheistic God. Big challenge. And if you don't believe in God, you have to just look at some of these biblical miracles. Now, there's some miracles that occur in the Bible that are simply beyond comprehension. But there's another kind of miracle that God has allowed Israel to experience. That's the miracle of committed men and women to gain this state, to win this state, to fight and die and bleed for this state, and then to preserve this state. So we would not be remiss if what I'm going to tell you at least leans over into the side of miraculous. But it's a kind of miracle as a result of smart people, committed people, doing very daring and very difficult deeds for the sake of the little kids that run around this country. One of those individuals, a general, retired general, guy who was significant in the Israeli Air Force, in 1981 became the head of the Israeli Air Force. And in 1981, they just came out of Yom Kippur War, trying to figure out how we're going to handle that, developing relationships with the United States, getting some nice aircraft, F-14s, and figuring out how to have a defensive plan for the enemy states all around them, 360 degrees. So one of these individuals, that man, was very concerned about another man about 1,000 miles away, blustering and bravado. And if you read the Hebrew Bible, you see this all through the Hebrew Bible, the various enemies and their braggadocio and their attacks against the Hebrews, the Israelites. Again, because that happened a long time ago didn't mean it happened. It was happening in 1981. And this guy to the east was saying, you know what, you Jews, I'm going to get rid of you. I'm going to do you in. You should have been done in years ago. You weren't. I'm going to do it. And I got a little surprise for you as to how I'm going to do it. and he decided to build a big bomb, a very, very big bomb, because his military calculation, this loud mouth to the east, his military calculation was Israel's a 2-bomb state, maybe a 1-bomb state. You hit Tel Aviv, maybe it's over. You hit Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, definitely it's over. 2 bombs. This guy is talking and talking and talking. Thank God the Israelis have phenomenal intelligence, phenomenal capability, figure out what people are doing while they're doing it, and understand how to defend themselves from what people are planning to do. So this general starts getting word and starts holding meetings. And I would love to tell you the types of meetings and how they took place maybe another time. We actually did a 20-minute story on this general and this situation. And he starts telling his folks and the leaders of the country, this guy's not only talking, he's building. A building is going up, and it's a nasty-looking building. And there's only one purpose for the building, to make 1 or 2 of those bombs. So as the building's going up and the threat is increasing, the everyday Israeli is going about their life. Isn't it amazing that in light of the threats that surround this country, on Tel Aviv beach, on the streets of Ben Yehuda in Jerusalem, the vitality and life of every Jew walking and running around, everyone in the military, everyone ready to fight again. So it got to a point where this general said, all right, we got to do something. And so the military planners at that point say, okay, special operators on the ground, we go into this building, we blow it up, we assassinate different, what do we do? Came up with a whole bunch of approaches trying to head off the development and building of this nuclear reactor in what wonderful country to the east? This was in Iraq in 1981. Who was the wonderful guy screaming and yelling at the Jews? Saddam Hussein. So they had to take Saddam Hussein in 1981, June, very, very seriously. And they came up with a plan. But a year or 2 before the plan, they had another plan. I said, maybe we can stop this if some of these scientists that are working for Saddam Hussein somehow disappear from the face of the earth. And some of the scientists start disappearing, I mean in France, in different countries, disappearing from the face of the earth, but the building went on. So finally a mission had to be planned. And it is really an amazing mission because the 14 pilots, 8 in F-14s on the initial attack, and then 6 in F-15s flying cover, basically. It's very interesting. We would view this as a suicide mission, and they were ready to give their lives for this mission. But if you ask these guys, and they have been asked, was this a suicide mission? They go, no, it was just a mission. We had to do it, and we had to get the job done, and that's the way it works. We're going to get the job done. And they take off, and there's a field out here. Some of the planning took place here. The jets were transferred down to the south. They left out of the south. The best of plans, and these plans were down to the micromillimeter second, sometimes go awry. As the jets are taking off, flying out from the area by Eilat, King Hussein from Jordan is in his yacht, and he looks up and goes, "What? Those are Israeli jets. What is this all about?" And the general, who's a dear friend of ours now, the general gets word, we got a problem, and they came up with some very interesting ways to divert the king's understanding. It was presented as some mission, just a short little training mission. Well, the jets had to go about 1,000 miles or so, and the F-14s at that time simply didn't have the fuel capacity to get that far. So going back a little bit, the Israelis came to the United States where the jets were built and said, we need to fly in the air a little bit more. They could not tell the United States, we're going to bomb the reactor in Iraq. Our guys want to fly around a little more. We have to extend the capabilities, planes, and their fuel tanks. These sneaky Israelis, let me tell you. And the engineers in the United States said it can't be done. You can't carry that much weight and have an effective fighter plane. So the Israelis went back and said, stupid Americans, we'll figure it out. And they built these very unique tanks that they dropped on the way there to give them the extended range necessary to strike and make it back. But those tanks had to be hooked up to the aircraft in a certain way to get off the ground. So every element had a corresponding negative consequence. And the general, and I'll tell you his name is General Ivry, David Ivry, I-V-R-Y. And you got to look him up. He's truly an American hero and an Israeli hero. He said every minute something went wrong, and we're in our planning room, and it wasn't big fancy rooms, little rooms, cups of coffee, all these guys yelling and screaming at each other, trying to figure out how to get this thing done. The planes came in very low, 50, 100 feet off the ground to avoid aircraft for 600, 700 miles. Imagine that. And when they came up on the strike, they had, and one of the most fascinating moments of our work was we're in his office in downtown Tel Aviv just a few years ago. Alan, where are you? Alan Kornman. Alan was one of the cameramen. Mark was there. Damon, who was with us, was there. General Ivry takes one of the airplanes. He has models on his desk, and he's showing us like this, how they went in for this is history that changed the world. And this guy's got a model in his office. Tom, we did this. We made them go over like this. They went down. They're coming straight on the reactor. They had to drop their bombs. The second plane in had to be 30 seconds back, not to get hit with that. The second plane starts saying, I'm okay, I'm okay. He goes through. The third plane had to come in. The same sequence. We had to get up and out before the return fire came. All of this stuff. All seven get through. They each had a call word. Once they got back up, heading back, and had cover from the other planes, the last guy was like a nervous wreck because he's looking at all this stuff, bombs going, people running, dropped his bomb, forgot to send in his call word, and Ivry and everybody back at the base is praying and wondering. And he says, I wasn't a religious guy, but I'm praying. Where's number 8? Where's number 8? And finally, Charlie was his call. Finally, they hear, Charlie, Charlie. And they all sigh of relief. They weren't back yet. They had a couple hours of flying to get back. And they landed in the south after an extremely successful mission. And they debriefed for a bit. They flew to the north. And that was it. Nobody knew anything. Nobody knew their name. Nobody knew about the mission. Nobody knew who did it. It was complete blackout for many, many, many years. And only recently, some of the names of the pilots came out. And one of them was one of the pilots on, was it Challenger, I believe, the U.S. mission. Yeah. What was it? Yeah, one of the pilots that flew that mission got killed Ramon. Yep, and he died in that. But the takeaway, the message for us, just as Elijah was here saying, and after the 400 prophets were incapable of bringing any fire on the sacrifice. And Elijah did it just like Roni said. The Israelites, this was a challenge. This side, the Israelites, that side, the pagans. The Israelites go, oh my word, our God is God. Our God is God. Well, when you look at situations like this, technically impossible, humanly impossible, but accomplished to perfection. You got to lean that over on the side of something being miraculous. There's some supernatural hand to that. And I think Ronnie, the guys, we do this, we bring people here so that they can understand not only the geography and the beautiful people and the history, but the fact, and this is critically important, that God of the universe who created and sustains is holding the small group of people in his hand, protecting them from evil people in the world. And uniquely, for the first time in history, the Christian community has joined as brothers and sisters with Jews in this world to stand together against some very, very evil people. And based upon 3,000 years ago on that altar, and 1981 in Iraq, we serve a God who is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
Thank you. Wasn't that wonderful? I just wanted to add that we did not have those airplanes until very, very close to the time when they were used. They used F-16, Israel did not have them, and the United States did not want to sell them. And there were tanks that were available, but America, the United States, decided not to sell them to Israel because they figured Israel had something in mind. So that was very interesting. But they all came from here. This is the squadron. It's called Nir David. The base is called Nir David, and man, this is it. And if it comes again, it will come from here as well, because this is the squadron today of the F-35.
One other point. When the reactor in Syria got hit in 2007, I said, that thing that happened in 2007 in Syria, you know anything about that? And he smiled like this. He goes, I don't know anything. I don't know nothing about it.
We still don't know anything about it.
And the walls came tumbling down. Blue, yes, yes, my Lord. Blue, yes, yes, my Lord. Blue, yes, yes, my Lord.
The trumpets began to sound. Joshua commanded the children to shout, and the walls came tumbling down.